The topic that I wanted to discuss, as I just mentioned, is how to how to change your circumstances by transforming yourself, okay? So first thing I want you to understand is I'm going to really try and really soak it into your consciousness that everything is all you. Everything. Okay? So, as we are consciousness ourselves, okay? So we're all part of this one consciousness, okay? Universal consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it, okay? We're all part of it, but we're all individual aspects of that one consciousness, okay? But we're not a fixed identity, okay? Our identity is something that we have created through a story, through our experiences of life. And so we have formed this ego personality that we call self, okay? But it's not truly who we are. We are actually pure consciousness and pure awareness. Because as I've explained in previous videos, if you can observe your thoughts, who is the one observing? Okay? So there is something that is observing yourself, then you are not. Hi Agnesa, how are you? Welcome. So as this awareness, okay, we are actually perceiving and projecting simultaneously our reality. So, and it's based on who we are currently identifying as. So everything is basically a holographic experience. And that's why people call it, a movie. Because that movie that is playing out is based on who we are currently identifying as. So your current identification is usually coming from past experiences, okay? But those past experiences are also imagination, because where else does it exist except in the mind? The past doesn't actually exist anywhere but in your mind. Same with the future, because there is only now. So this is why you are able to choose who you are identifying as, by really truly recognizing that you are the awareness and not the small self. So in order to change, it's not even about changing your reality, because all realities exist, okay? All potential realities exist, because we're multidimensional and all potentialities exist. But the lens that we are viewing through is the one that perceives. It's a subjective experience. So if someone is not... So because I see a lot of people posting about, not just in this group, but in a lot of groups, okay? Oh, this person is doing this, and this person, explaining all the circumstances and really getting caught up in the circumstances, which is I've done that too, okay? We all do that, right? Because in that moment, you're actually identifying with that character who is in that particular reality. But when you step back and become aware, you can identify that those circumstances are only an illusion. They're not fixed. They're just based on who you are identifying in that moment. So, as Neville Goddard says, you know, there is no one to change but self. So what he means by that is, it's not, a lot of people, okay, will do this. They will try to affirm and they will try to imagine a different reality, okay? So when they're seeing something that they don't like, okay, and it doesn't even have to be just other people. It can be to do with money, anything that exists is all part of this one consciousness, okay? That's all energy. It's all part of one consciousness. So in order to perceive a different reality, instead of affirming and trying to change it from the same level of consciousness that you're currently at, okay, so a lot of people are doing it from here, okay? So just imagine, okay, so this is the reality that you want, okay? So this is the ideal reality. And here's you trying to fight against it here, okay? But the only way to really observe it differently is that you raise your level of consciousness to meet it. Because we're all one. So, for example, when I say we're all one, right? Okay, so for example, you are having some thoughts about a particular person in the way that they are behaving, right? You don't particularly like it. The way that you are perceiving them is how they can't show up any other way than the way that you are perceiving them, because it's all you. It's all your own movie or your internal narrative that is perceiving that reality. So where does the change happen? The change happens internally. It's about going in regardless of the circumstances and not trying to change the external circumstances, okay? It always comes down to changing you internally and identifying as someone who perceives it differently. So identifying, okay, so let's see if I can explain this in a different way. So if someone's showing up in a not so loving way, then you shift your identity to someone who is always and has always been treated with respect and love. Just know yourself as that identity. Occupy the state of someone who is treated with respect and love, and you yourself see everything through the eyes of love. And this will take some practice, okay? Because you've obviously been practicing this identity for decades, or, you know, a very long time. You've been practicing that identity for a very long time. So in order to shift it, it's going to take... So this is where the effort is. It's not the effort. It's actually quite easy in comparison to repeating affirmations and constantly trying to reinforce your mind to think something different when you're trying to do it at this lower level, okay? But when you're able to really step into that awareness and become aware that you are God, that you are consciousness, that you are love. You can do this through meditation. You can just do it by just being present. By just being present. It's the moment you are present, all thoughts of the past and the future will disappear. And it's like your heart opens and there's no crazy narratives going on. When you do that, it's such an effortless shift. in comparison to trying to affirm and trying to change the external reality and change the circumstances from this lower level, okay? It's about always shifting to this higher level of consciousness and identifying with the ideal version of you that already has what you want, already has everything that you want. You're abundant, you've got love, it's all within you. And the more that you can just occupy and assume that that's who you are, assume the feeling of it, the knowing, then the less you have to fight against any circumstances. You just let everything be exactly as it is. Accept it all. When you can accept everything, the external circumstances, the transient emotions, the transient thoughts that are going through your head, and just remember, I am. When you're able to do this, and then when you're at that higher level of consciousness, then you can imagine the scenes, or, imagine a scene of you, whatever it is your desire is, okay? So you imagine the scene from that state and go into your imagination, see it and feel it as if it's right here, right now. It's not you're not trying to imagine something in the future. You have to experience it as if it is right here and right now. And you're doing that from a state of awareness, of God consciousness, rather than trying to do it from this lower level, because you can't create a new reality from the same level of consciousness that's created this reality, this current reality. It definitely has to be. So this is why when people work with me, so in my one-on-one coaching, I take them through a deep process of shifting consciousness. It's not about let's practice imagining, this. It's really about stretching their level of consciousness to become the identity that they wish to be, because you already are that identity. It's just we're unable to see it from the lower level of consciousness that we've always been. So that is how I work with my students, and they're absolutely loving the experience they're having, because it's quite different the way that I coach. It's really about there's nothing really else that you need to do except to raise your level of consciousness so that you can observe the world differently. And as you do this, as you internally change the dynamics within you, you're not so much then focused on the outside circumstances, because you feel the fulfillment. You feel fulfilled, you feel abundant, you feel loved, you feel all of that within you, and as if you don't need the outside world to change. And then if you can get to that level, that's when things will actually change. So this is how you change your circumstances, by shifting your awareness and shifting your own level of consciousness to match your ideal reality. So that's really all I've got to talk about today, but I'm going to ask if you've got any questions, if you like to put them in the chat there. So I'm happy to answer any questions. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes a minute or so to type your questions in there before I go ahead and answer them. Hello, Cassia. Cassia, welcome. So I'm going to be starting, just to let you know too, that I'm going to be starting a podcast soon. I'm not sure exactly when it will be up and running, but I'm going to be starting a podcast as well. So on Spotify, so once that's up and running, I will let you know. I'm looking forward to creating some podcasts for you. And I am also, because I've had a couple of people approach me about coaching that don't speak English, so I'm also going to be offering some email coaching for those that don't speak English, or, you know, are just looking for some email. I'll be introducing that as well as just as another option. So if you've got any questions, okay, can you please get more into observing? I missed that. Okay. Let's see how I can explain this. So observing. So you are the observer. You're not the identity, right? So right now, can you observe your thoughts? Just take a moment, go, yeah, I'm witnessing my thoughts. Can you observe your breath? Yes. I'm aware that I'm breathing. So, if you are aware that you are aware, then who is the one observing? Okay, it's not you. That is your consciousness. That is your God self. That is the infinite self that is observing. That's part of the one consciousness. Okay, we're all connected by this universal mind, universal God, whatever you want to call it. So this is how, when you are creating a story in your mind about reality, how everything is reflected back to us, because everyone is connected. Everyone and everything is connected to that same consciousness. So when you have a story about the way reality is, it can only ever be reflected by the story that you're telling and the narrative in your mind. But because you are observing and you are aware that you are aware, you can also choose a different perception, a different reality, a different version of you. But you have to do it from this higher level, not from, I'm the Jenny, you know, like I'm the personality, the Jenny, the whoever, you know, whatever your name is. You know, you can't do it from that level, because then you'll be constantly battling with yourself. There'll be, and this is what most people tell me, is that they feel like they're at constant war with themselves, because they're trying to change their beliefs, trying to change their thoughts at the same level that was created the current concept of self, the current reality. But when you shift into that awareness, and you can do it instantly, you just have to become really present. The moment you become present, aware of your breath, aware of your thoughts, then no past or future exists. It's just reality Just everything just is. There's no judgment of anything. There's no good, bad, indifferent. Like, you are just indifferent. And that is what stepping into this, like, the God consciousness feels like. It feels like neutrality. There's no struggle. It's effortless. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's joyful. That is what awareness feels like. Yes, I'm looking forward to creating some more meditations on my podcast as well. I love creating meditations. So I am looking forward to doing that on my podcast as well. I love that explanation. It's mind-boggling, but it sounds wonderful. It is. It's mind-boggling if you haven't experienced it, but you just have to practice. You just have to practice observing your thoughts, observing your breath, and becoming present. I think that little video that I did not long ago about how to step into your awareness. Just awareness, awareness, awareness. Even if you just repeat that to yourself. Like for me, as soon as I say that, I instantly shift into presence, into like everything just is. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to struggle against. There's nothing to judge as good or bad. Everything is just neutral. And your heart expands. It's just a beautiful, amazing feeling. So if you can keep bringing yourself back to awareness as often as you can, then you are able to rise above any circumstances and start changing your inner world to that which you do want, no matter what the circumstances. It comes down to you're not changing the external reality. The external reality is only a reflection. And I can guarantee that if you looked at any situation in your life where something maybe hasn't gone the way you'd liked it to, you can actually trace it back. And it may not be directly like I had a thought that that's how it was exactly going to play out, right? Because the details is something that we can't control, right? But you may, so for example, right? I'm going to give an example. So a lot of people that are focusing on SPs, right? They always end up in this situation. A lot do end up in a situation, right, where a third party comes along, right? So they might not have consciously thought, oh, I wonder if there's someone else. But they may have had a thought that's come from previous relationships where they have a fear of abandonment or a fear of rejection, or, their insecurities have come into their mind, or they feel like they're going to be left, or they're not good enough or not lovable enough. And it's kind of like a subconscious thing. It's not something that they're constantly thinking about. And so from that self-concept and their identity, that is how the circumstances play out. So it's not the detail so much, it is the concept of self. And that's why Neville says there is no one to change but self. It's all about who you are identifying as. So if it's money or it's relationships, you rise to the level of consciousness where you are already in the ideal relationship, okay, you have to clean slate. You have to forget about the, you know, don't bring the past into it, because there's only now. And think, who would I be if I was in this loving relationship? Who would I be if I had financial and time freedom? Who would I actually be? And start thinking from that identity. And crowd out the old story. It's not about fighting the old story. It's about crowding it out with the new identity. And you do this from awareness. From becoming, I am aware, I'm present, aware. Awareness now, who am I? I'm not Jenny. I'm not this identity. I'm not this person that's this age, from this country, you know, even with this family or whatever. It's no. You are consciousness. You are God. You are awareness. And you are creating your experience. This is how God experiences itself through us. It's by becoming man. God becomes man by infinite perspectives, and each one of us is infinite perspectives. So God, this one, God the one, and we're all part of this one, is experiencing itself from infinite perspectives, to know love from infinite perspectives, because it all really comes down to love, everything.